Hello and welcome. This is Japan, and we are going to talk WrestleMania. It just happened this last weekend, and there's a lot to be said about it, depending on what you like in wrestling and what you don't like. And there's a lot of not like in this, so we're going to do the best way we can to navigate it and talk about the ins and outs of it. So I guess buckle up. We're gonna try to figure this out. So straight off the bat, we have the Usos and LA Knight versus Division and ISHO Speed in a six-man tag match. Match is kind of random, just to get that star power in there, just try to get Usos and other people on the card. Just really wasn't warranted to even have a match. I mean, I could feel like there's a million other matches I could have put together that would have worked better than this, including just having the tag team titles defended. Did have a few spots, but the whole like them turning on Speed at the end and then Speed becoming the hero, I just thought was kind of like it definitely was had some entertainment value because I think the wrestlers in it were pretty solid, especially on the Vision side of things. I just feel like there could have been anything else that was on the possibilities of being a WrestleMania match, and I would have taken it over this. So I think I'll put it in C because there's definitely worse, but it's definitely towards the bottom of the matches altogether. Then we had Jacob Fatu versus Drew McIntyre. This one's kind of difficult because I think the match itself was all right. Like I definitely wasn't opposed to anything that they did, but being an unsanctioned match, I really thought we were gonna get a little bit more of like just anything that was a little bit more brutality. I think they really could have hammed it up, especially with Fatu winning and then having what they have his push on Raw the night after. You would think that he would want to win like decisively and like a little bit brutal, and it just kind of felt like, okay, well, this is a unsanctioned match, but it's not much more than any other DQ match that I've ever seen. So I guess I just don't know. I feel like I liked it better than the tag match, but I really just thought like this is very tamed and not what I'm looking for in this match. So I'm gonna put it in C. Again, it's not the worst match. I definitely think it's better than that. Maybe like I would put it a C plus, but I couldn't put it much higher than that. Then we had Becky Lynch versus AJ Lee for the Intercontinental title. Another match that just felt kind of rushed to put it on the card for one. I think they definitely could have made this, a multi-man match. I think it would have, one, gave them more time to do it and more just all together because the feud itself was okay, but we've already seen this. Nothing was new, nothing changed the wheel. They just went out there and had a match. Again, I just feel like it just wasn't WrestleMania quality. I don't think, out of all the AJ Lee matches, I think this was probably her best one. So I don't think it was that bad. But it did feel like Becky wasn't able to really elevate it like in other matches where she's had opponents where she's had to kind of pull up higher. Because unfortunately for Becky Lynch, the last 6 months has just been AJ Lee and Maxine Dupree, and she's been kind of just having to carry those matches with having her be the veteran wrestler in it, because like AJ Lee obviously is a veteran, but like she's trying to get into the WWE now wrestling thing, and I think she definitely could if she just sat here and did more stuff. I think she's about to take a break, so it's kind of pointless to what I'm saying, but I think she could get back to that like elite type thing. But again, it's not great. I think I'd put this in between these two as just a regular C. I'd probably like the C minus, like C plus, C minus on those. So they kind of just hover around there, being just kind of extremely mid. And I was like, okay, at this point, this has just been super mid. But I unfortunately don't think it gets anything too crazy after this. So next up, we get the women's tag match. They kind of banked on with kind of having the big surprise of Paige being back as the big thing, but having these 8 women in here, I feel like they could have had way more spots and way more stuff. Like I could understand, maybe giving Paige less time in the ring just to, figure out that even with Brie Bella on the other side, they, could hide that. But like when you have Bailey and Lyra on the team and Lash and you have Bliss and Flair, you had so many people. I think this really suffered from not having that signature like team to really hold everybody together, like the Kabuki Warriors. I think adding them here when they obviously aren't doing anything would have been perfect, but They just didn't do any of that. So I think I'd put it above the AJ Lee and Becky Lynch match, but not by much. And the ending with Paige and Brie Bella winning just felt completely random. I don't really understand why they went in that direction. Then we get to Gunther and Rollins, the match I was looking most forward to in the night, and it delivered. I mean, it delivered exactly what you wanted to. You weren't gonna get a super crazy wrestling match like flips and shit, but you were gonna get technical stuff and just pretty much altogether just a really good back and forth. Obviously, we knew that Seth wasn't gonna lose clean, so they had to bring Braun Breaker in. Again, not necessarily upset with that because I thought we were going to get a lot of interference, but altogether with these next three matches, we all had interference, but it wasn't to the level that we've had in the past. So I do like that. Like, obviously, Rollins would have won that match if it wasn't for Braun Breaker, but enough that we could get this and move on, and, we won't. We don't need to have like another one of these matches. This is a one-off that ended up being pretty solid, and I'll put it up at A. Easily the best night one match, not to spoil the other two. I could see people putting this in S tier. Me personally, I'm a big Seth Rollins fan, not a big Gunther fan, and I think their chemistry wasn't the greatest between it, but it still was a really hard-hitting match that I can appreciate for being where it was on the card, was exactly where it should have been if the rest of the card actually was going to be good. Then we get Vicaire and Liv Morgan. This one I'm just going to have to put down in D. There's multitude of reasons. I think the two did the best they could for 6 minutes, but given 6 minutes for the amount of storyline and everything they've gone back and forth. Now, a lot of reports said that they were hurt, both of them, but then they should have had more interference. They've done it plenty of other times, so why not? It was like Raquel and Roxanne barely did anything. Stephanie loses, and that's just it. It just felt disrespectful for Stephanie to end her run that way, and it does nothing for Liv Morgan to win this way because it doesn't really say, oh, she's a dominant champ or any of that type of stuff, because the match just stank to high hell, and it probably, not too much spoilers, probably my least favorite match of the entire card, and that's saying a lot. It's definitely a D plus because I do think they wrestled the best they could for 6 minutes, but 6 minutes is never going to be good enough for a WrestleMania match that has this type of storyline. That where it's like we knew this was going to be a blood feud type thing and attacking and all that type of stuff. It just didn't work out the way that it should have. Then we get Cody Rhodes versus Randy Orton. There was a lot of stuff that I thought was going to happen in this match. I was hoping for some big twist at the end. We didn't get that. The Pat McAfee stuff was pretty much in the beginning and then at the very end, so that kind of helped the match a little bit. They had some good brutal spots, but the whole thing of having like Randy being kind of hurt the whole time, throw that out of the bag. This is a championship match. We didn't need any of that, especially with Cody retaining. That's what I really, really don't understand. Like, you should have just made Cody actually win this match. He got plenty of stuff that happened to him that would have, at least shown that, like, yeah, Randy really put on that big match. And then at the very end, with Randy's attacking him afterwards, would be the perfect time to write Cody off if you were going to have it. Like, why do all that and have him do that extra brutal stuff that he should have done in the match? Not to mention with Randy Orton just really just didn't get that opportunity to have that WrestleMania moment because he should have won that match. I just don't really understand the feud and all of that just to have Orton lose. I still think the match was still more entertaining than some of the other stuff on the card. I think I'm gonna put that as the C minus, and then I'm gonna put the Usos and down there as a B plus. I more and more I think about it, I really don't think they deserve to be in the C category, even though the company isn't the greatest. But that's my night one thing. It pretty much is one of those things that I hope night one just doesn't exist in the future. It was kind of like night two, was that last year or the year before? I don't understand sometimes the talk and what they try to do by being like, oh, we're gonna do all this, and then it just fails miserably. Then let's get to night two. We get Obafemi versus Brock Lesnar right off the bat. It was done perfectly. Even though this match is less than 5 minutes, and like I said before, it's hard to have a match that is under 5 minutes or under 6 minutes that could be good. This is what they needed to do. This told the story and all that, and then with Brock Lesnar seemingly retiring at the end of it, even put Obafemi extremely more over. I'm going to put for entertainment value and for the time that they were on there, I'll put it up into B because it just was one of those good matches. It's stuff that you're going to remember for years to come. And if that is Lesnar's retirement match, that is going to be still phenomenally great for Obafemi going forward. Then we get to the Intercontinental ladder match, just filled with a lot of stuff. I think the biggest negative I'd say about this is giving the free jobber entries for JD McDonough, Dragon Lee, and Rusev that were just in the ring when the match started. This is WrestleMania. I don't care what ads you have to do or how much you have to extend the show. That does not have a time limit on the show. You know, just throwing that out there. They could have gave them the time to come down there. That is the most disrespectful thing that I think I've ever seen in wrestling in my entire life. And I just moved my cat. Are you okay, everybody? I moved my leg. I didn't realize he was on the edge. But that was just the most disrespectful part. Other than that, this match was phenomenal. The spots were great. It was total action nonstop. I think the only thing that I would probably say, like, for the match wise that I kind of hated was the biggest spot of the OG cutter for Javon on Rusev. Rusev basically had to jump off the ladder to take that, and I feel like they should have done something different, or he totally missed the spot. Either way, it just ended up being a cool moment that kind of is tarnished because it didn't make a lot of sense. But overall, I'd still be comfortable to put this in S tier. It was one of my just favorite WrestleMania matches altogether. It was just a lot of fun. They really delivered on this, and yeah, at 8. Next up, we have Trick Williams and Sami Zayn. Other than Trick Williams winning this match, I feel like the rest of this match was just doomed from the start because they should have had Carmelo. They really could have just needed that. The match itself was just kind of a boring pace one. They didn't really do anything crazy. It was just kind of a solid match, so I'd put it in C. I'd probably just put it C altogether. Let's see. I think I'd put it right in the middle of all those matches. It just kind of was boring, other than the result, and that was pretty much the only thing I liked about it. Then we have the Demon Finn Balor versus Dominic Mysterio. A lot of people did not like this match. I really don't understand why. I think this was just like a really cool match with Finn Balor. I think Dominic, took up another level of his stuff. The entrances were on par. I think everything to me, I thought it was a very enjoyable match. I don't see why people hated it as much as I don't even think people hated it. It was just like the cage match was way off compared to everything else. I think it was like in the 6s, and I was like, I definitely would have it in B. I think it was a pretty solid like 7.7 or around that type of area, which I kind of put around the B area. So I'm gonna go with B. Then we get Jade Cargill versus Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley sold her ass off. That counter at the very end was smooth as hell. Gave us that, possibility of, that she might end up failing. I think she did a phenomenal job. I think I'd put her work in an A, and I think I'd put Jade Cargill's work in a C. She just still hasn't gone to that second level that we need her to get to, especially if she's in the main event scene. Her mic skills have been, lacking in this feud, so they really needed to turn this out to being a good match. Definitely could have used a little bit more time, maybe, but even then, I don't know if that would have saved this match. I think I'd put it as a solid like B minus, like right on that cusp line, but I think I'd still feel comfortable putting it up there because I think Rhea really did this. They did have a little bit of interference, but it was good enough because anytime I get to see Io Sky do something, I'm perfectly fine with that. And if you add that to the match with what Io did outside, that also gives it a couple extra points to kind of save it in that B spot. Then we get Punk versus Roman Reigns. It was just kind of a back and forth, crazy, classic WrestleMania main event. Like, it just really put what WWE normally tries to do in those big time matches. I think the only thing that I would have changed is just make it a DQ match or no DQ match, because him hitting him with the stairs and all the other random stuff just feels so violently terrible to be like, he didn't, like, the match should have been thrown out. I know it's supposed to be like, oh, it's at the referee's discretion, but like, Jesus Christ, that's so crazy that they just put that in there. Just make it a no disqualification match. It would have just saved them all of those issues. I really don't understand why they didn't do something like that. It would have been perfectly fine. I think that little bit of extra brutality would have still fit, and we wouldn't have to worry about or even just make up like, oh, well, like that. And plus, some of the other stuff they would have had a little bit more brawling outside that I thought actually was pretty solid, but they had to keep breaking up the count and stuff. So I feel like that part was definitely the lacking part, but I think altogether, I still just really enjoyed it. I still think CM Punk should have won, but I'm not necessarily against it based off of what Roman Reigns' next feud looks like to be with Jacob Fatu. So if that's what we get and we get something decent from that, I'm cool with it. So I'm gonna put up an S tier. Obviously, night two was a lot better. I think I'd put it in a solid B. Maybe B plus area, like definitely way better, and I think everybody would agree with that. Um, there was very little stuff that they could have fixed on night two that really put it over. I mean, like I said, the squash match in the beginning was great call. I like the Finn Balor and Dominic Mysterio match. I don't think they could have done anything too crazy or more that get too many more points. Sami Zayn and Trick Williams, I really just think would have really worked with having, Carmelo in there. And even if you added like some Dragunov in there and having a fatal four way, I think that could have definitely pushed it into like an A category with just having some more seasoned, like crazier wrestlers on top of all that. And pretty much like I said, they've got two S tier matches in it. There's it's hard to do, and I think altogether this was just phenomenal of a night compared to night one. But altogether, I still think it's hard to beat last year's. I mean, at least like last year's, there was a lot of different stuff that I was back and forth. But the Rollins, CM Punk, Roman Reigns match, I think was pretty good. That was like pretty signature to have on there. And then obviously the giant ass Bianca Belair versus Io Sky versus Rhea Ripley match was just such a great match. That was match of the year basically, or at least top three. Those matches are hard to get back, but they did something at least to recover on night two to gain back a little bit of my trust that I thought that I would lose by watching this Finn. So I guess I'll have to give it that. Altogether, I think I just put it as a B, just slightly above mid. I feel like they definitely could have done a lot better with night one. I think that would have saved them a lot. All they really had to do, honestly, was just more time to those matches and less to advertisement. I don't really care if I had to sit for a bunch of matches or advertisements if I get to sit through a bunch of matches, and I just feel like that was disrespectful for the women, especially on Liv and Stephanie, to only get the 6 to 7 minutes that they had. I just think is terrible. So that's my take. If you guys enjoy wrestling stuff, we're gonna try to be way more productive now that WrestleMania is over with, and I hope you guys are ready for that. So if you like this video, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.